we go. Good.
Well, hello, welcome to the very first episode of our new series. It is created specifically with driven and dedicated independent filmmakers in mind, usually doing a lot of the work themselves and looking for the concentrated information that they can take action on so they can confidently create more of their own films. Which is why I am delighted that our very first guest is Dr. Rebekah Louisa Smith, who is probably better known as the Film Festival Doctor. Welcome.
Hello, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be the first guest.
A very high bar now.
Yeah.
Amazing. How are you doing? Where are you joining us from, by the way?
So greetings from sweltering hot Dallas, Texas. It's morning time here. And I have got clothes on, by the way. So you can't wear much in this state because of the heat, so brutal. But it's very nice.
Oh, with long hair, isn't it? It always covers the straps, and everyone has a little kind of.
Yeah, like, is that hot? No, we've got clothes on.
That's how you run your business. Okay.
But no, it is beautiful. I mean, it's like really. It's just brutally hot, but it is gorgeous. Like you wake up and it's like the sun and the clouds goes and you go like, it's, I love that kind of thing. So it's my kind of weather. It lasts for like good 4 or 5 months. So that's a bit of a bonus. Always like hot weather. But yeah, so it's good. And I just got back 2 days ago from the Rebekah Film Festival in New York, which is really good. Really interesting because they've got lots of different programs now. They've got games, immersive, VR, as well as films. So there's a lot to choose from when you're there. You can get lost, because it's quite a lot, like a mini South by. But there was also music. Taylor Swift was there as well. But it was really interesting because I haven't really been too immersive until recently because it's something that not all festivals do, obviously. But it was really interesting and not pretentious, just really, people way ahead of their time. So it was really interesting, really good.
Yeah, I think it's crazy how fast the tech is evolving. And
yes.
Seeing who can be, not that it's a competition or anything, but seeing who can adapt and adopt those technologies,
yes,
especially into something like storytelling, which is so intangible a lot of the time. I love seeing how people can combine all of these different elements, mostly because it's not my skill set in any way.
Yeah, I'm new to that.
Okay, I trust you if that's what we're doing.
Like we actually have repped 2 VR films, and I don't do a lot of VR because it's so new and not many people know yet what they want to do with their VR at festivals. It's quite a new thing, and immersive is totally new, so it's good to learn that for the future. But also the VR film I've got now is really interesting, so it's quite exciting. It's going to mix up our festival strategies, not just always having films, or having like different products as well. So it's quite get your teeth into something new, which is quite a challenge, but it's exciting.
Yeah, amazing. So am I right in thinking you pretty much pioneered the film festival strategy business and did it by building these relationships with festivals the world over in order to gain that understanding of what they're looking for?
Yes, so it was in 2008, 2009 time where I was producing a film festival with a wonderful team called the Abattoir Horror Festival in Wales. That's one of the best horror festivals in the whole world now, and I love that festival. I haven't been back for a while because I don't travel internationally at the moment, but I've been all over the place. But they're doing an amazing job building it up. And I always said to filmmakers, I was always intrigued because I was really getting into the festival world because it was new to me, but I was preferring it to academia. And I said to the filmmakers, what do you like and dislike about film festivals? And they all said, well, we love them. Come in here, meet new people, connections, awards, prizes, and see the film on the big screen. But we actually don't know what we're doing. We don't know how to create strategy. We're just going on without a box. That was what I was having at the time. And just seeing what happens, hope for the best. I was like, well, that's not a strategy. And I thought, well, that clearly someone needs help with this, getting to film into festivals. So I thought, is this a thing? So back in the day, this is like 2009, as I said, kind of timeline. This was before Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, LinkedIn, and all those kind of platforms were not really a thing for business. So I was relying on Google to research film festival strategists, film festival consultants. I mean, people might have done it maybe on the side of maybe producing or something else. But I thought, well, is there a company that does this full time? And there was a company called Film Festival Secrets, who's now not taking on new clients, but he is the kind of pioneer of the niche, I suppose, because he had this, really nice looking, book and business, Chris Holland, and he's incredible. And I was like, oh, someone does it. So I wanted to figure out how to build on that, but it wasn't much to build on because it was many consultancies. I wanted to do like management, where we'd look after the project. So taking like a lot of stuff, but then I was learning through the circuit how festivals worked and how they program, because I was the one from Abertoir going to the festivals. I went to Cannes, Berlin, and other horror festivals, and I was meeting new people, learning. And I was like, oh, I think I can do this. Not like learning on the job, but then I thought, right, I'm going to make this company not be seen as like a luxury service to an in-demand one, and be an essential part of the filmmakers' distribution plan and their team, because it is an important part of distribution, getting a film into a festival for independent films at the very least. So I've, grown it since then and adapted it. I mean, every day I was tweaking it because I was, doing something that hadn't been done before. At the time, it wasn't well known, and other people do it now, which is great, but it's still a small amount because it's a very specific job and you have to know how the circuit works and how people work. So it's something you have to do full time. I don't do on the side, like, producing or writing, directing. I'm focused purely upon film festivals because it's a very interesting world. Every day there's always something we learn. It's incredible.
Yeah, and especially when every festival is so different in the way that they run, in the way that they work with filmmakers. When we were talking earlier about immersive filmmaking, that's not just you get a cinema and then you screen the film with the DCP and you sell tickets. It's a whole different ball game of how you operate that. So yeah, I'm not surprised it's more than a full-time job of working out which festival does what and remembering who's who and the whole situation.
Yes, it's kind of a combination. So when I create a strategy for a client, whether we then manage that with the filmmaker or they manage it themselves, the filmmaker independently, the whole thing it's created upon is based upon knowledge of person, programmer taste, so what they like personally, their audience, and also the previous programming. So, for example, I've seen some films at festivals when I was first touring the circuit. I did say to the programmers, I thought, oh, that was surprising, that film being in there, but clearly it worked with the program. They went, yeah, it fits the theme, so that's why we put it in there. So it's interesting. Some don't do that and some do. So it's a case of learning on each one. But also I love talking to festival programmers, asking what they look for. And sometimes they say, well, we don't have one specific thing. We're quite general, but it has to have this kind of standard. So that's very, useful with the context.
Yeah, I always think it's really interesting, depending on whether the festival is got a real consistent theme to it or an aim to it. Some really focus on minority filmmakers. I hate calling like minority because I'm like, if it's a numbers game, then they're not minorities.
No.
But it feels like a sort of shooting yourself in the foot by calling yourself a minority filmmaker, because you sort of put yourself in a niche when you get front center. But anyway, it's a different conversation. But some have very, clear aims for the festival itself. Some have themes, year on year, they'll, focus on different things. So it must be a really fun, entertaining task of staying on top of all of that and, staying in touch with these people throughout the year. And, there are busy periods, there are hopefully not busy periods.
Yes, exactly. I mean, I've seen the London Short Film Festival change and grow, and it's an amazing festival. Like in the beginning, it used to just screen purely UK short films, but now it's international. They've got different people on board. But Phil Ilson's still great, running it and being like the oracle of short films that he is. He's a great guy. And the films they have there are really interesting, always diverse, unique in what they have in their themes. So that's, seeing that change and grow, it's brilliant. I think the one festival that, or two of them actually, that I've seen like grow and grow and grow has been Beeston and Carmarthen Bay Film Festival. The Carmarthen Bay Film Festival began obviously that was in Wales. It's like a tiny festival that was screening anything that gets submitted. And now it's like, a really, really strong festival with great films, and it's BAFTA, Wales and England qualifying for shorts. And Calvin Guy is one of the nicest people in the world, and anyone that goes to that festival is so welcomed by him. It's really interesting. And also John Curry at the Beeston Film Festival, that's gone from being went from being a small festival obviously to one of the really, really strong in terms of programming short film festivals, and now it's BIPA qualified. I see going up and up and up because he is brilliant, John. He's got a brilliant vision and a really good team, and it's great seeing them just grow and grow because like we're part of it. And the Chelsea Film Festival in New York's the same one, seen that grow from where it was to where it is now. So I love seeing that because it shows their commitment, dedication, and hard work.
Yeah, I think it's really easy sometimes when you're on the other side of things as a filmmaker to forget that festivals aren't just sort of slightly faceless organizations. There are people, there are hearts, there are, agendas in the best sense of the word of, what it is they're looking to achieve and the impact that they want to create. So I always love kind of picking your brain about who's growing, who's doing what, who's behind, the kind of faceless organization approach.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Because obviously you'd say rehearsal's different. And you just have to know what goes on behind the scenes. It's always exciting.
Yeah, and that dedication you have to getting to know the festivals and the people behind it and managing all of that, it really does allow you to create freakishly accurate strategies for your films. And I can say that with first-hand experience because we're a good few months now into the submissions for Wool, which is currently on the festival circuit. 1 rejection so far. So
that's a good result.
I mean, guaranteed as soon as this goes live, we'll have had like 5 rejections. Just to but no, so far we have had 1 rejection. We have had a lot more selections, nominations, a special commendation. And funny enough, we've submitted to a few festivals that weren't on your list because either we knew someone there or it was a local to us one, or whatever it is. And I think we've been rejected by pretty much every single one. What I love about what you do, because we have that strategy. I haven't scrolled Film Freeway once. I've wondered what it is I should be doing or who we should be submitting to. I've never stressed about which festival deadline have I missed, and maybe we should have submitted to that one after all. And I'm not scouring the internet for discount codes, because that strategy saves so much time and so much money. But I think what's more important is this sense of calm certainty that you create for your clients. And I think without that strategy, we would have been submitting to whichever festivals we thought would be a good fit, but we don't have that knowledge. And so we probably would have had a lot more rejections. And right about now, I would have been wondering if we'd spend months and months and months and thousands of pounds on making a bad film. I'd be wondering if we need a different edit or a color grade, sound design. And actually, we just needed to submit to different festivals.
Yes.
So your knowledge of festivals and what they look for this type of film is just impeccable. So I'm always really curious, how do you analyze films? What do you look for when you get a project in?
Well, first of all, thank you for trusting strategy and me, because that's what you're doing there. It's brilliant. You're not thought, well, okay, well, that's what she says, but we'll just do the opposite.
Yeah, thanks, bye.
We'll just submit it till I can, kind of thing. So good that that's really great, because obviously results are coming in. I'm really pleased because this is a gem of a film, because I knew about this at script stage when we started collaborating on it, and it came together really well. And it's a lot of, in terms of like with the film itself, being female director, female producer, female themed story, and the length of it's great, so you've got a really good product there. So clearly now it's your what's the word? It's flourishing, which I'm really happy about. So so going back to that main question about what we look for when we're looking at the film, what the key thing that festivals of a higher tier are looking for is original kind of story and execution. A lot of the time you do see a lot of films that have good concepts, but either the script's not strong enough, the dialogue's not good, the acting isn't on the right level, execution is a bit up and down, inconsistent. So that means it's still got a life at festivals, just smaller ones that will appreciate it and can see, emerging talent in there, despite the issues. But you won't be able to get away with that with the bigger festivals that are Oscar level qualifying and have very high standards like Aspen and, on top of my head, another one's and Indie Shorts, Heartland, all these two are like amazing quality. You never see a bad film there, the same as Bolton, the same as Encounters in UK. So it's really important that what we see when we review a film is going to be something that festival programs will be excited about, because it shows a new talent that's taking a risk and not holding back and is being really strong with the vision, and is not thinking, well, I should maybe cut this out because it will be safe, or I don't want to take this risk because I'm new. They just do it with a bold, strong, audacious tenacity. That's what we're looking for. A good example is a film we worked on called The Cunning Man. That did loads of festivals. but it was a really original story. How it was actually called it was like Magic Reality, and it had magic in it. It had a bit of genre, female director, but it was very unique. It looked gorgeous and a brilliant performance, and it did really well. I did like about 9 or 10 like Oscar qualifiers. Did Ascetica, did Cinequest. It did quite a lot. So off the top of my head, those two stood out. But that kind of thing, which really shows a visionary filmmaker with a script and story that is incredibly strong and has not been done before. So that, is a little gem.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
an amazing run. Just to have like selection after selection like that. They must be very
It's great. Like when you wake up and you like see the email from Film Freeway, like notifications say it's a change. You're like, oh yes, and oh another yes, as opposed to like, oh dear, it's a no.
Maybe tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean some films can be what we call festival darlings and do loads because they're the kind of films easy to program. It's for like a universal audience, but sometimes you get films which are maybe too local and will do well in their country. It can happen a lot in the UK and also the US. But there's a good example is a film I'm working on now, a feature called New Material, which is about a group of stand-up comics based in South Africa. Now, the director, we worked with him on a film called Beyond the River, and that was incredible. So it did Busan, it did Talent Black Nights, it's incredible. And it's a brilliant film. This is a bit more commercial, this one. So it's not like, say, groundbreaking and do, like those Oscar qualifier festivals. But they did say, we want to get this out there because it can hopefully translate to other audiences outside of SA, of South Africa. Actually, we said, well, yeah, because it's very funny and the performances are very strong. It's nothing groundbreaking or new, but it's very good, solid piece of work. And I can see it doing well within SA audiences, but also I can see it translate. And it's got into lots of festivals outside of SA. It does well in the UK, US, and it wins awards, which is also even better. But it's good to show that, some films in SA can be too local, but this one, which is like, is a very kind of commercial SA film, it can travel. And that's what they wanted, was their goal. They weren't too fussy about, a certain type of level of festival. They wanted to see if it could actually go overseas. And it's like a bit of an underdog. So that's really exciting. Like, oh, wow, look at it. It's like he's traveling now. It might win an award here, and it's gone there. And the director's like, wow, well, that's great. I didn't think it would. He was like, I just made it because we had to like make it for because we wanted to make a new product. It's a sequel to the first one. So I wanted to make it, for the audience, So.
Oh, it's a bonus. Great. Okay, fine.
Every time like something comes through, we're like, oh, this is exciting. So, and we tell them, they're like, well, that's great, and they're really, that's what they wanted. So it's really appreciation.
Yeah. We were talking earlier about the differences between kind of story and concept, and then the, elemental execution of the sound design, for instance, and all of those little elements that do go into it. And I think it's really interesting seeing the films that really get both and produce both brilliantly well. Those are usually the festival darlings, right? When they've got 10 out of 10 on both sides.
Absolutely. I mean, sound's a big thing, festival programmers don't just mark things on, have to have good sound, you have to have good this, that, and the other. Those are all like expected to be strong for the big top tier. Smaller ones can be a bit more forgiving because they can see some good in there, as I mentioned earlier. But I always say to any filmmaker, you have to have good sound, It's so important because it looks obvious if you haven't.
Yeah.
And festival programmers know if you haven't got good sound or not because they see so many shorts and features.
Yeah, it's always the tiniest things just like the diegetic sound of someone like walking on the leaves, for instance. There are so many films where it's just a fraction too loud. And it spoils the whole thing because I think, like, science-wise, I'm not sure on the research of this, but experience-wise, I think the sound levels, like, you recognize that immediately. The visuals, it takes a little bit longer to process and to recognize, whereas the sound, when something is off, when something's too loud, or when there are too many clashing, elements in there, you realize it immediately and it just ruins the entire effect. So yeah, sound is always
huge.
You've got to get it right.
As is acting, like you can tell if the acting is good or bad, and I don't know if you can work that around an edit, but you can just tell. Yeah. But I think that goes into all the preparation. Like I had a film that was extremely well made and great acting. And he said, well, we did prepare for 3 months for this short. So that probably explains it. And I was like, wow. Some people haven't got that time, because they have to do other things and whatever and jobs. But that was absolutely brilliant. It paid off, you could tell, because it was just like they had lived together all that time, and it's flawless. Another filmmaker of mine who's a National Film School graduate, an FTS graduate, she is incredible with her performances that come out of her films. It's just like there's no script. They're just talking normally because it's so like naturalistic, and she's captured it. That to me is like a real skill.
See, as a producer, I'm already terrified now. I'm like, how do you do that? How do I do a scene breakdown?
How does that work?
Yeah, it's always a fun balancing act, really, isn't it? It's really funny, as I was kind of going through your website and just refreshing on everything that you do and that you've achieved, I remembered something that the director of Wool said when we had our first consultation, when you were talking about how the process works and timelines and that kind of thing, because we got off the phone and she looked at me and she said, "Doesn't seem fair." And I said, "What are you talking about? Rebekah's great, we're paying her. What do you mean it doesn't seem fair?" And she went, "Because not everyone has this," which is a fair point. And the thing is, we had it because we had you from day one. I'd budgeted in a pretty healthy amount for submission fees, and I'd budgeted in your time and your strategy. And so it was fair for us because I'd said day one, like, this is a non-negotiable, in the same way that paying for the camera is a non-negotiable. Right? Like, we have to have a camera or there's no film, and we have to have the festival strategy or the film sits on my laptop. It's two sides of the same coin. But I know a lot of filmmakers, you and I both know from personal experience of chatting to filmmakers, that they focus everything on just making the film. So by the time they get you, both of our faces are like, oh God.
Like, oh my, that's sweet.
Yeah, so by the time they get to even thinking about festivals, their entire budget's been eaten up, and it takes them a while to get things in place. So for you, what are the essentials that filmmakers should have in place and can put in place before they really start that festival journey?
So what the key thing is having very streamlined and focused goals. So knowing exactly what you want from the festival circuit. So some people do come to me when they finished it and don't know what they want. So a way to unpack that, I think, well, why was the film made? What was the point of making the film? And how can festivals achieve that? It's like going back to the beginning. So I think it's important that when filmmakers say, right, I want to make this short, think about the why. Is it just because you want to show that you can make a feature? But then to really prove that point, festivals give you that platform to do that through official selections at great festivals, awards, nominations, feedback from audiences. So it's really important that you are very much more, very focused and put the business head on. Obviously, making a film is extremely creative, and we know that, it's not a corporate video, it's a creative content, so it's very important. So it's important just to have a very clear and very focused goals that you can achieve with the film. So it's important to ensure that the script is as strong as it can be before shooting, and you have the right cast and crew that can help execute it in the right way, and that you have in the beginning as well, I would say, is you put money aside in the financing phase, whether it be private, personal, or whether way you're going to raise it, or crowdfunding, is to put money aside for festival submission fees, people like me, a strategist, i.e. me, and also money for obviously me, and also money for making a poster, trailer, a DCP, SRT file if you're going to travel abroad with the film, is really important, because they cost money. They're not going to be free, and you can't rely on the festival to create that for you either. Sometimes they can, but you'll find that most of the time they can't. So it's important to have money aside for that in the beginning. So you raise it and put it aside is really good and organized. So it's being very business focused. Like, you can spend the time, like hours, creating the screenplay and the vision. That's great. But then when that's done, they've got to rein it in for the business, because film is a business, and so are shorts, so are features, getting on the set festival circuit, the whole lot. So be very clear on what you want, what you have and the funds available.
Yeah, and it's so much easier when you are in pre-production to figure all of that out. You know, you saw the
Yes.
wall and you were able to give notes on it, and it meant that we could just, like, it's on paper, we can change that. Whereas
Yes.
had we gone to you when the film is, you know, almost completed, or, you know, we're just doing the last couple of bits, you would have said, oh, well, you could have been in this festival, but, you know, this is going to bring it down a little bit. So definitely being prepared makes me really happy, at least. I always talk about it with my coaching clients of, you have the creative work and the commodity work. And so people focus just on the creative work of writing the script or doing the storyboards or whatever it is. And then they get on the phone with me and they can't work out why that's not translating to a career or to a paid income. And you need that commodity work to go with the creative work, because you can write scripts all day long, but it's never going to make you any money. Whereas when you do that commodity work of pitching to producers, and, you know, for distribution, it's about planning that in advance so you can actually do the festival circuit and do it of a high quality, you know?
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, when some people do say to me, look, we rushed it, so the script was a bit, it could be just needs some more work, but it is what it is, we've got to move on now. What can we do with this? You know, it's going to be limited, but, you know, there's probably going to be something good in there. You just have to see what the finished product is. But if your goal is to get festivals and you really want it to go far, then it does rely on the script and execution. It's not just a screenplay. That's a big, important part. But having the right cast and crew and director that can confidently execute it in the way that the script asks for, then that's what's most important. And this is all important stuff at pre-production. You're right. You know, like when we spoke, you know, you were at script stage and I was like, oh, this is exciting. And you were like, yeah, we had a few of the usual setbacks and COVID but as well. But it got there in the end. The usual kind of dramas in that time. So
yeah, the great thing was you could say, you know, maybe rein it in on like the fishing, because when the husband is often going on these fishing trips in the script, and had we not had that note from you, we would have had all of these scenes with him in like fishing wear, garb, whatever, and we wouldn't have been able to change that. And it was a really simple change from costume to work-related costume. And it's all of these tiny little details. Otherwise, it would have just looked like he's obsessed with fishing and is planning something involving a river. I don't know.
Slightly odd.
So it's a lot easier to change things when it's still on paper and to make that plan. Even if that plan changes, I think it's having that aim and that plan.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. You're right. So
the funny thing is we were, there are a few submissions that we were rushing a little bit when we got the strategy and the film was finally done. We had like remote post-production was no fun because normally you can just do it in a room together. And now it's, we transfer downloads and I write my notes and Dibna writes her notes. And then we agree on our notes and then we send it back to the editor. And 3 days later, it's done. So
finally.
It's no fun. And it did drag on a little bit. So it meant that we had like 2 days before one of the first deadlines that we really wanted to submit to. I think it was LIF, London Independent.
Oh, yeah.
Got selected for.
Great.
And I'm such a cheapskate that I was like, we need a poster and we need an EPK. Canva. And I put those together in like record time of 3 hours or something. And I'm like, this will do for now. We can get someone proper in to do this. And the funny thing is, like, we still have that same poster. I haven't had anyone in to create a new poster to create professionally an EPK. And I've done it with my $10.99 a month Canva Pro subscription. And
that came in use.
Yeah, the DCP we did with DCP-O-Matic, which I'd seen a good couple of years ago, and I was like, I wonder if this is legit. Like, is this a thing? Because this is a free DCP. I don't know if this is like a real thing. And again, it was a kind of, we need the DCP done, and we're kind of a little bit close to the wire in terms of when they need it. Let's give it a go. And we can find someone to do it properly, but we'll have this in the meantime. And I always think, especially when you are prepared for these things, like had we had more time, had we had more of that budget available and someone lined up to do those things, great, a lot less stressful, a lot less on me and my patchy design skills. I think it's really interesting seeing that there are so many different ways you can do things, especially with films. Like there's no way necessarily to do things when it comes to short.
Yes, absolutely, no, absolutely. So there's always the other option and the ways of doing things. Yeah,
the cheapskate way.
The camel way.
exactly. So you are managing multiple projects, multiple strategies, you're traveling a ton, you're often at festivals and events, so away from your desk. So, you know me, I'm always a bit nosy. So what does it look like behind the scenes in terms of routines, team members, systems? Because, you know, you're not just efficient and organized, you are creating these strategies that are freakishly accurate, you know, and
Yeah.
you handpick these festivals based on what you see in the film. So what does it look like behind the scenes in terms of keeping that running on a daily basis?
So it's being extremely organized. We have a very good system in place where we have a screening timeline, we have spreadsheets for each film, we have notifications of when deadlines come up. Well, because my background is also being a PA before I went into academia, so I'm very good at making, you know, organizing systems and getting everything in place for each film. So I have checklists for each one, what we're missing, what we need. And we have also WhatsApp groups for all of the films that we represent and manage, so that everything's on top of things, so everyone gets updated in little messages, because obviously things happen and come in, as you know, through the process. So we're very organized, very structured. I've got my team, got one girl in Canada, two girls, sorry, in the UK, and Dominica in the UK. And they're like the core infrastructure just to make sure everything gets on top of things, which is great. They're absolutely brilliant. And we're very busy right now with one film called Remember Me, which stars Legacy, Grammy-winning artist, and a brilliant cast of who's who of Black cinema, which is really busy because it's doing the circuit, and it's also got very good distribution deals from the sales agents. So it's all like, you know, full force. And there's always stuff with that because you've got to organize Q&A, Zoom Q&A, and in-person Q&A, getting the right time, you know, so which is all part of the process, and it's really fun. You know, it's what we do, so we love it.
Yeah, I love a good, anything that I can organize just makes me very happy.
Yes, and I like that too. It's like in the mornings, like, oh, get this sorted, and then I have like all my checklists and stuff, you know. So I have like a lot of like papers and things. I just have to make random notes. I woke up this morning. I was creating a strategy for a short film, and the people live in Austin, and I was like, oh, I just remembered. I knew it's going to do really well at this festival. I must put in a strategy, and it's like suddenly pops up in the head. I'm like, right, scribble it down, and it's on the beside my bed in that kind of notes page. So I'm like, and then it's like just pops up, and then I have to write things down. Like, wait, don't forget them. So
Yeah. I mean, I don't like to admit it, but I've got 6 notebooks down there that,
oh
along with the collection, just because I have like a notebook per thing.
yeah, oh, I
Otherwise, I
see.
don't know, yeah, which notebook I've written it down in, and it takes a lot longer to find it. But I really like, I'm going to get to a point where I have to start planting trees. It's
Yeah, because that'll do the job.
everything has to go in the notebook first, and then I've got it all out of my head, and I can organize it in
Yeah,
organized way, you know.
get
Um,
it all in a system. In a
it's all
system.
out of my head, and then it can just be refined into a nice thing. So what I love about your business is that you not only are creating this really impactful result for filmmakers or awards and selections and, you know, the fun stuff, but you are really giving them that peace of mind of what they need to do, and they don't have to stress about it. And, you know, for me at the moment, I'm in location hunting for my next short. We're in pre-production. It is a nightmare. And if I was in the middle of scrolling Film Freeway at the same time, like the two would not get done simultaneously. But what I love is that you combine all of that really impactful work with the more spiritual aspects of just day-to-day life. And again, in your book, you know, which I read last year before,
Yeah.
well. But for anyone who is interested in terms of branding yourself and building a business that is aligned with who you are and not just a kind of numbers game or the kind of dry detached business that we often see a lot of the time, Rebekah's book, Born to Do It, is one of the best that you can read for that. So I know that you have a ton of other resources on your website as well for festivals specifically. The book I highly recommend, but is there anything in particular you recommend people take a look at when they're looking at festival strategy and planning?
I think it's important that the filmmakers look at the BAFTA qualifying list of festivals and the Oscar qualifying list of festivals, so they know which festivals are going to be, you know, the tough ones to get into, and look at those ones. Look at what kind of films they screen and what their themes are, what the previous program is, and just get an idea of, you know, the big boys and how they operate and who sponsors them, previous winners. All these kind of things are really crucial in their research process, because that way they'll be opened up to the eyes of these bigger ones and where they might fit in. So that's important. And also keeping grounded too. If you read the book Born to Do It, there's very good tips there about manifesting and cosmic ordering that will just help, able to let go and stay grounded during this process, which is a bit of a waiting game. Speaking
Mm.
of waiting games, I've got to head off in a minute. So I've got to go to do another Zoom in the UK. But this has been a really lovely chat, and I've really enjoyed it. And it's great working with you as well.
Oh, you too. Thank you so much for being here. I will tag all of the relevant links so everyone can just go straight to chatting with you. But yeah, it's just, if anyone was under any illusions, because I know we talk to a lot of people who are, oh yeah, I'll start with like the top tier festivals and work my way down. And I love that your approach is so like, no, really be picky, like really analyze your film, get right under the skin and figure it out. And I love that approach. So thank you so much for being our first guest.
You're welcome. It's been fab. Thank you.
And I will talk to you soon. We have so many more wool updates that I just can't wait to send you in the middle of the night, Dallas time.
Thanks. Take care. Bye. Bye.